This is St. Augustine, the oldest city in the nation, founded in 1565. Each year, hundreds of thousands of visitors explore the massive fort and stroll through these narrow streets to recapture some of their past, some of their heritage. Here in St. George Street is a small house, the Avero House. Its history is outlined in the vibrant development of a young, new American nation, but it's of special significance to Greek Americans. To understand this significance, we must go back some 2,000 years to Greece. There was kindled the flame which was to spread to this continent, and which has brought us to refer to this place as our Plymouth Rock. Throughout history, the Greek has been a traveler. The rugged mountains of Greece leave but little land for farming, so Greeks have journeyed elsewhere for settlement and trade. The sea has been our highway, from our homeland to neighboring islands, to Asia Minor and North Africa, to Western Europe and to the Americas. But always we have preserved our family roots, our heritage, our traditions, and our religion, the ties that bind us together as a people. Always in our memory is the glory of our ancient past, our art and architecture, philosophy and mathematics, literature and drama. And the form of government begun 25 centuries ago in Athens and known still today by our word, democracy. We have freely shared our culture. We have never imposed it upon others, but others have imposed theirs on us. In the 4th century before Christ, Alexander the Great, a Macedonian, carved a vast empire which spread east to India and south into the Nile Valley. Then the Romans pushed out the Macedonians. In 36 AD, the Apostle Andrew founded the first Christian church in Byzantium, and Christianity blended with our ancient culture to give our lives an even deeper sense of purpose and direction. Finally, in 325, the Roman Emperor Constantine removed the seat of empire from Rome to the east, founding the great Byzantine Empire, which was to last for over 1,000 years. He built a new city on the site of the ancient Byzantium and called it Constantinople. He recognized the Eastern Church, which has evolved into the Orthodox Church we know today. In 532, Justinian I began the building of the great Church of Christ, Hagia Sophia, or the Church of the Holy Wisdom, a structure which is still one of the greatest architectural triumphs of any age. The Byzantine Empire slowly eroded under the onslaught of barbarians, until in 1453, Constantinople itself fell to the Ottomans, bringing to an end the longest period of Greek influence ever known. This was a time of global unrest and exploration. Columbus sailed to the New World about 40 years after the fall of Constantinople. During this time, the Turks allowed us considerable freedom, but as the Ottoman Empire declined and became more oppressive and corrupt, true freedom and an independent land became our dream. This caused many to leave their homeland, some as sea captains, others as sailors and merchants. But the first organized group came from the Peloponnesus. The small mountain villages of Mani had been able to preserve their freedom from the Turks, protected by the hazardous cliffs that surrounded them. But the Turks, sensing the spirit of revolt growing, began to suppress the Mani in an attempt to break that spirit. Then, from the small port of Koroni in the Peloponnesus, came word of an Englishman, Dr. Andrew Turnbull, who promised land and freedom for those who would join him in settling in the New World at a place called Florida. Between 400 and 500 Greeks joined in the venture, contracting for years of servitude in exchange for land and eventual freedom. In all, Dr. Turnbull picked up 1,405 people from Mediterranean lands, people who spoke many languages and represented both the Roman Catholic and Greek Orthodox churches. They came from Crete, Smyrna, the Peloponnesus, Italy, Corsica, and Minorca, and set sail on the perilous journey to America. They arrived in St. Augustine in 1768, filled with hopes for freedom and land to call their own. The same hopes which motivated American colonists to write the Declaration of Independence just 8 years later. After obtaining fresh supplies, Andrew Turnbull moved his people 75 miles south, where he established the colony, naming it New Smyrna after the birthplace of his Greek wife. But the dreams of the Turnbull colonists were challenged by the reality of disease, starvation, and harsh servitude. Ten years after settling in New Smyrna, only 291 colonists had survived, and they fled to St. Augustine and found solace in a structure known as Avero House. Here their seed took root, and survivors of the colony were slowly absorbed into the general population. Vestiges of their presence are still visible today, streets which bear their names, historic sites in which they lived, taught, or worshipped, and tombstones that bear silent testimony to their presence. A generation later, in the early 1800s, General Andrew Jackson forced Spain to give up Florida. At this time in Greece, our forefathers began the cruel war of independence from Turkish rule. The brutality of the Turks was devastating, but at the great naval battle of Navarino, the tide was turned. And in 1829, independence was finally won. The political struggles after the war and the presence of foreign kings sent to rule Greece caused many to seek their fortunes elsewhere. America, which had been generous to Greece during the war, was now seen as a haven. Emigration of Greeks to the United States began. Slowly at first, fewer than 100 in the first 50 years after Greek independence. But in the next 50 years, until 1920, over 200,000 arrived in America. Communities formed in New England, New York City, Chicago, New Orleans, San Francisco, and other major cities. Work was considered a moral duty, and at first, most started as dishwashers, laborers, railroad workers, boot blacks, and peddlers. Most learned English. In time, some became shopkeepers, owning fruit and grocery stores, candy stores, coffee houses, restaurants, barber shops, bakeries, and some entered professional fields. The waves of immigrants to America have given our new nation its diversity, its exuberance, and its character. But always there is that part of us that remains unchanged, those traditions of culture and religion that bind us into a people with a common spirit. In America, the gathering place for the men was often the coffee house. Family life was centered about the church. The observance of holy days provided both a communal spirit and occasions for festivities. In time, we developed Greek language newspapers, social, political, and religious organizations which became the fabric of our lives. The Greek Orthodox Church of North and South America was established in 1922 with Archbishop Alexander as its first spiritual leader. In 1930, 20 years after World War I, the Holy Synod of the Ecumenical Patriarchate elected Athenagoras, the Metropolitan of Corfu, to become the second Archbishop of North and South America. While the Church became stronger under his inspired leadership, those of us born in America were finding it more difficult to be both Greek and American. It was through educational and public service programs, such as those established by AHEPA, that the image of the Greek American was further advanced. When, in 1940, Mussolini was stopped in his attempted invasion of Greece, pride in the American-born Greeks for the land of our fathers suddenly rose, and the fascist threat became a unifying theme. America itself was urgently reminded of its great debt to the ancient and classical Greeks. When the Nazis were finally routed, most of our youth had a new feeling for our heritage. Those of us, the second and third generation American-born Greeks, with our hard-earned success, now recognize the importance of our heritage, the pride of knowing the roots of our culture, and the legacy and unity of a common bond. It is with pride that in all walks of life, in all professions, our Greek names appear prominently. With succeeding generations, it becomes ever more important to provide for moments of reflection, that our sons and daughters may come to know and take pride in our birthright, the traditions, our ethnic and spiritual heritage, the character that makes us who we are. In 1965, under the leadership of His Eminence Archbishop Iakovos, Aveiro House was purchased by the Archdiocese. The property was sanctified by His Eminence and named after one of the most illustrious missionary leaders in Orthodox history, the Ecumenical Patriarch Photios the Great. The St. Photios Shrine is something we've never had before. It's our Plymouth Rock, a place where we can tell the rest of America the history of our forefathers and the way in which our roots in America have come to be planted. Today, you will find Greek Americans in the mainstream of American life and culture, in business and politics. And as it has been for thousands of years, you will find the church tending the vineyard it has been nurturing on this continent since the New Smyrna colony landed over 200 years ago. A milestone in the life of Greeks all over the Americas and of the city of St. Augustine itself was the dedication of the shrine in 1982. The city became Greek for a day, and as the sound of Greek music floated through the ancient streets, people literally danced for joy. You've witnessed our history, our lifestyle, our faith. We're grateful for the opportunity to share these things with you, and we invite you to visit our bookstore and also to lift up a prayer for yourself or a loved one by simply lighting a candle in the St. Photios Chapel. A simple gesture, but one which stands as a silent yet brilliant testimony to the glorious heritage that we all share.